Welcome to my channel, Notorious Crafts. In this video, I will show you how you can turn this standard room box into something that looks like this. I'll show you how I add flooring, paint the walls, add baseboards, and crown molding. Here are the supplies that I'll be using, and the links for them are also down below in the description. This is the room box that I'm using. I like it because it comes with a plexiglass cover to protect my miniatures from dust. I'll remove the blue film once I'm done with painting the entire box. I also have some wood glue, white paint, a miter box, a handsaw, and I also have some miniature wooden flooring that's 1/12 scale. I got this at Hobby Lobby, but I also saw the exact same thing on Amazon. And then I also have some baseboards to add, and I'll use this handsaw to cut those into smaller pieces and then attach it with the wood glue. And then I also have some ceiling molding, so I'll add that when I'm done painting. And not shown here, I will also use some wood stain for the flooring to give it some color. I also have some chamomile lavender tea to sip on while I am working. First up, I'm going to remove the plexiglass cover and put it to the side. The inside of the box feels a little bit dusty, so I'm just going to grab an old rag and wipe the inside of the box to remove some of the dust before I start painting, because I do not want to get those dust particles stuck underneath the paint. I'm going to pour some of my white paint to have on the side and ready to go. I will not be painting the floor since that's where I will be gluing on the flooring, so I'm only going to paint the back wall, the side walls, and the ceiling. So I'll just flip the box on its side and then start painting one of the side walls. I am using a foam brush to paint the walls. I'm hoping that gives me the least amount of streaks instead of a bristle paintbrush. I think it would look the best if I had a paint airbrush. That would give me the most even coat, but I don't have that yet. Maybe one day. For the corners and the edges, I grabbed a smaller brush just to fill them in since the foam brush couldn't quite get to those little tiny edges. I also used the small brush to paint in the crack where the plexiglass is going to go. I was debating if I should paint that since the plexiglass is going to be sliding up and down, and I worried that maybe it would scratch the paint, but I figured I could always do some touch-ups with the paint. I also painted the outside edge so that the entire box has a nice clean look. I ended up painting a total of 3 layers of white paint. That's how much it took to just get the paint to look nice and even. I also did not paint where the baseboard and some of the ceiling molding is going to go since I will be gluing those on and I want the glue to stick to the base instead of the paint. All right, so unpackaging these ceiling molds, and I'm going to first measure them to see how big I need to cut them so that they will fit inside of the room box. I am cutting the ceiling molding using my miter box and the handsaw. I'm also cutting the molding on an angle so that it'll fit better into the corner. I am using a toothpick to apply the wood glue to the back of the molding, and you want to be careful to not add too much because once you press it in, some of the glue can come out, and once it dries, it turns a little bit yellowish, and you don't want that to show. And then I am gently placing the molding inside of the room box and then just pressing it in, and if any of that extra glue comes out, I'm just gonna take some of it off. I am also pressing it down firmly so that there aren't any gaps in between the molding and the wall. And then I put in the rest of the molding into the other sides of the ceiling. And now I'm ready to install the flooring. So I'm just going to open up my flooring package. And as you can see, all of the floorboards are stuck together with a plastic backing. I thought it was a sticker, but it does not come off at all. So I'm going to have to glue this with this on, and hopefully it doesn't come off at all. And this is made from real wood. As you can see, there are still some rough edges. So I'm just going to grab some of my sandpaper and then sand down some of these rough edges so that they do not show up inside of my room box. I also need to trim down these floorboards so that they will fit inside of the box. So I'm just using my X-Acto knife, and I just have to cut through that plastic film in the back. I'm using a pencil just to mark where I'm going to have to cut the rest of the floorboards. Also use a ruler to get a nice straight edge so that I know where I need to cut. I'm first cutting along this line using my X-Acto knife. You want to be very careful whenever using the X-Acto knife. It is so easy for it to slip and you can really hurt yourself. I'm going to use the X-Acto knife just for the first few cuts, and then I'm going to use my larger hand saw to cut the rest of it. I'm going to save some of the extra pieces that I'm not going to be using. Maybe they'll come in handy for a future project. Next up is the wood stain. Here is the wood stain that I'm using. It is in the color Golden Pecan. I'm also wearing some gloves while applying the stain just so it doesn't stain my hands. I also have the window open since the smell is extremely strong, so work in a well-ventilated area whenever applying wood stain. I also mix the stain using a popsicle stick since you do not want to shake the wood stain. I also could not find my big brush when it came time for the stain, so I had to use a small brush. So always have your supplies ready on the side. It did take just a little bit longer to paint with the smaller brush, but not too much longer. Overall, it wasn't too bad. And once I was done, I let the stain dry for a few hours before rubbing the excess off. I also just let it air out overnight so that it didn't have any more fumes. Here's how the wood looks after staining it. You can really see the nice grains of the wood, and here's just a comparison to before I stained it. Before I stained it, it looks just like a generic craft wood, and now my floor is just going to have a little bit more character and look like it belongs inside of a home. I think I forgot to press record when I was gluing in the floorboards. I just glued it in as one giant sheet, so I just applied my wood glue to the bottom of the floor and then placed the flooring on top of it. Now it's time to add in the baseboards. Here's a close-up of the baseboards. As you can see, they're very detailed, and I also like that they are pre-painted, so it saves me one step. Next, I'm going to cut them down to size so that they fit inside of the room box. Once I have it down to size, I added some glue to the back of it, and then I installed it to the very back of the box and just pushed it in and made sure that it fit perfectly. And then I added in the 2 remaining baseboards to each of the sides, and that was pretty much it. My room box is now finally done and complete. I'm just going to let these last remaining pieces fully dry since the wood glue does take a little bit of time to dry. And here is how the final room box looks once everything is dry and in place. Overall, it wasn't a bad build. It just took a little bit of sawing and just some time to let everything dry. And now I can finally take this blue film off the plexiglass. I also need to furnish this room box. I was thinking of having this room box more of like a holiday room box. So whatever holiday is in season, I'm going to put those type of themed miniatures inside, mainly because I live in a small apartment and I don't have too much room in my apartment for decorations, so that's why I love making miniatures. I also forgot to paint the top of this plexiglass, like the wooden part. I put it to the side when I was painting so that it wouldn't end up getting paint all over it. And I'm gonna have to go back and make sure that I paint it so that the whole box is in a white color. Let me know what you guys think of how this room box turned out. Have any of you guys ever made a room box? Any tips? Feel free to share them down below in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. See you guys in the next video.